some levels while you're talking. Just stay sure. I can hear it in the back. But you're good to start.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Lost Media panel here at Neon Retrofest 2023. My name is Forgotten VCR. This is The Opponent. We have been creating live streams about retro and lost media for the last 4 years.
2019.
Since 2019. And I know personally that the pandemic made it so that I had nothing to do, so I spent entirely too much time on these projects. And we're going to just tell you a little bit about what we do and why we do it. And then I'm going to show you some of the work that I've done. And then if you guys have questions about the work we do, or specifically about lost media, VHS in particular, how to preserve it, issues that you run into, how to have setups for it, how to get into it, how to not get ripped off. There's a lot of different things that we can kind of talk about there. So we'll just show you some of the work that we do and why we do it, and then we'll open up the floor to questions. So Theo's going to go first, and he has a presentation, so I'd appreciate if the class could please pay attention to his PowerPoint.
How are we going to present the presentation?
Did you not hook up your PowerPoint presentation?
No, I thought we were going to.
Oh yeah, no. Then you're gonna do it live like Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah, I'm just gonna store it.
All right, go for it, Theo. You go first.
May 2019, I got the idea to start up a 24/7 channel, partly because I got into other 24/7 channels on Twitch, all showing like things like 80s cartoons and movies, and started noticing a lot of things that a lot of mistakes that I wish they wouldn't do that I thought I could do better. And I wrote up a checklist of things that I think 24/7. This feedback isn't there. Things that 24/7 channels ought to do that I just don't see them do. 4 main things here is that one, the video has consistent video and audio quality, like the aspect ratio is right, the audio levels are about the same for each program, that there you actually play audio left and right. A lot of videos only show just one. Second is let people know what they're actually watching, make the show title available, preferably on screen, if not that in the chat or in your stream title. And if you're gonna show episodic shows, like series, play them in order. Show season 3 after season 1, things like that. And the fourth one is, why is there so much?
He's doing cues and stuff.
Oh, right. Fourth one is more of a personal thing, but don't put any overlays on the video, because the stream is, unlike traditional Twitch channels, they have to be about the media, about this whole analog stuff. And that means no stream alerts, no text over it, no frames, no bezels, and especially no watermarks. And I find that majority of these channels, even now, only get at most one of these things. They usually fail 2 or 3 of these checks. So I decided I wanted to do that better, and I needed a subject matter, and I got the idea to do Old Timey British Computer channels, Old Timey British Computer shows. So I went to Internet Archive, I found stuff like Micro Live and Computer Chronicles, and British TV shows like Bad Influence and Games Master, and I started getting more and more ideas for other things I could put on here, and I eventually got enough where I could show several days in a row.
How many days? Tell everybody how many days of original programming you have right now.
Right now, 350. I put up 8-hour blocks each day, and then I program a playlist adding up to 8 hours, almost exactly, give or take 5 minutes, 28,800 seconds. Because I had an old job where they made digital signage, and they would play these videos on a loop pertaining to a particular industry, and they timed it exactly to a second, except they would be 8 hours total, and they would just play it indefinitely. So this is basically just a clone of my old job because I miss it. So it's the best job I'll ever have. It's what I went to film school for.
Yeah, both Theo and I are film school rejects that don't really do what we learned, but we've kind of adapted to it in a weird sort of way that we weren't expecting. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
Let's see, I just wanted to brag about it a little bit. I have
you should brag about it.
2,500 videos, 517 hours or so. And I do all of this by myself. I clean up everything by myself. I get everything in the right resolution. I get the audio levels to -6 dB. I look up the video titles, episode numbers, and the exact air date or broadcast year, wherever that information is available. It almost always is. That information is important because one of the main features of these 24/7 channels, or even analog media where the stream is not like on screen or a part of it, is the Twitch chat, that they talk about and respond to this information. And the year is an important historical context.
Yeah, the chat was something that I didn't expect to be such a big part of the project, but I can definitely say that the chat interacting with what we do and asking questions, and then other people in the chat being more knowledgeable than me and encouraging them to provide links and things like that, it creates this really interesting environment where we're all sort of learning at the same time and sharing at the same time. And, you know, not to sound lame or anything, but it's like a community of people that all care about this sort of stuff. And as much as we all like to think that media doesn't get lost, it 100% does. And especially as we switch from format to format and platform to platform, you know, one of the things he brought up that is the biggest pet peeve of mine is that people are watching this content in 16:9 instead of 4:3. Stop doing that, please. Because it's the original ratio that it comes in. And so in the same way that those of you that like retro games like to play things on CRTs and things like that, it's the best way to experience this media. It's more tactile, and there are, kind of like with vinyl, where like you have a record that you really like and a song that you listen to a lot skips or pops at this certain spot, that's yours. And other people's records don't do that. And the same thing is true with VHS. It's very personal in that way. And I feel that way when I acquire VHS as well, is that, like, what's the story of why this person recorded this off television? One of the best things I've gotten recently is a friend of mine gave me the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks with commercials, and the commercials are from my hometown. And it's the most amazing thing to go through because it's such like an understanding of the zeitgeist and the feeling of that time. But what's interesting about commercial media is that it's not reality. It's this like fabricated, positive version of like what the 80s and 90s were like. And now that we're out of that, and I'm 40, and we've got like all of this, you know, context to sort of look back to, you kind of see like a weird BS American dream, let's say, that was kind of constructed by it. Can we talk more to this one?
Either one. You're the problem is it's like in the middle, so it's both are.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
It's already a lot better.
All right. So, did you want to finish up anything?
Well, I didn't really think about exactly.
Just bring that right as close as you can.
Right on.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, no problem.
I didn't really put that much thought into the role of this media until I applied for this panel actually earlier this year. Next May, or this May 18th, is going to be 4 years of my life dedicated to making all this stuff available, because yes, it's preserved, it's on Internet Archive, it's on YouTube, but if people don't actively seek it out, what's the point, right? Yeah, it's important that it's out there for posterity, but the whole point of media is to be watched. This is history telling itself. It's in there for us, it's available, we can see what these people lived. And Twitch is just a really good way to get that information out there. People will just watch anything on Twitch, especially this 24/7.
Well, and now we're competing with AI channels, which was not something that we ever really thought that we would have to be dealing with.
I think it's a whole different niche. I don't really think AI is much a competition. It's an alternative.
Yeah, it's a different kind of niche for sure. Well, so Theo comes from, and if I can just say this about Theo's stream, if you are sort of, if you have nostalgia, right? Obviously there's a nostalgic kind of itch that can be scratched. But every time I watch the Old Timey Computer Show, I get kind of melancholy because we now know what all of this technology led to, for better or worse. And when you watch things like the Computer Chronicles, these people are just so positive about where the internet is taking us and how great all of this is going to be. And to watch that in the context of the kind of hellish nightmarescape that is social media right now, it's a really strange feeling. And I always feel kind of like sad, in like a good way. Whereas Theo goes out of his way to preserve things as accurately as humanly possible, I take footage and I try to adapt it to what I want it to be. When I was in film school, we didn't have YouTube yet. So one of the things that we would do is make compilations of movies, commercials, weird local stuff, infomercials, and we would compile all of those together on tapes and trade them with other film schools at other universities. If you're familiar with Winnebago Man, that always ended these tapes. It was like always the last one on these tapes. When I got into grad school, I found out about this guy named Derek Bickles, and he made a series of videos called TV Carnage. If you can find them, you should track them down. If you know what TV Carnage is, I am very heavily borrowing from that concept. where I'm taking, but the difference is that when I was in school, I was really obsessed with editing, and particularly the idea of how you can create reality through the juxtaposition of images, right? It's this idea where you can take things, and because they have visual aesthetics that are similar, and because I use VHS, and I use a lot of the same genres, it's very easy to make footage look like it matches together. And so what I do, and I'm going to show you like a 9-minute sort of version. Most of my mixtapes, I'm up to like over 100 mixtapes at this point. They're usually like an hour long, 45 minutes to an hour. I'm not going to make you sit through all that, but I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday at 8:30 on Twitch. So if you wanted to check that out, it's kind of set up like a broadcast, so to speak.
It's 8:30 Central Time, by the way.
I'm one of those losers in the Midwest. It's Central Time, so my apologies. So what I do is I call them strings, where I have sequences of footage that are all themed. A lot of my mixtapes have an ongoing vortex of people inserting VHS tapes into VCRs, which then starts the next footage of someone inserting a VHS into VCR. It's very easy to find that footage in movies from the 80s and 90s. I think instead of like talking about it so much, I think I'm just gonna play just sort of and I get to give you an idea of what I do. All right. So we're having a little bit of sound issues. We both have to get up and move in order to do this. But hopefully you'll be able to get a sense sort of what my editing looks like, and then we'll do a Q&A.
Just a bad dream.
Good. He'll be back. Once he kills himself first. Well, it's electronically locked. When we hold the code to the release mechanism. And I'll wait to get it off. Not scalping himself.
Good for him. But listen,
I thought I heard the sound cut off, but it's not coming up on the it's not showing up at all.
the information has probably reached a detective called Brad. To avoid any trouble, tell your men to keep the street quiet.
Awesome. Sorry. It just turned off. Just turned off.
ブラスタームービーさながらの怪奇派レスラーたちである。特にこの2人に対するウィングフリークスの思い入れは強い。
Just, it doesn't make any sense.
It just shut off all the...
There's no reason. I want to blame a bad cable, but not. It doesn't make any sense.
Weird. There it is. There it is. There we go. Those are my favorite items. No! It's cutting on edit.
It's almost like it's split stereo or something like that.
It could be trying to do mono or something. Alright, here, I'm just gonna stay. Hey y'all, we're having audio problems and I apologize for that. So, something later up in the film festival area, I'm gonna be showing a bunch of short things from that. I'll try to show a full tape because I have them all on my computer. I think what's honestly happening is that you notice how the sound's cutting out with each edit? It's doing like a forced thing with stereo versus mono. So we're running into an issue. I apologize for that. But you can kind of get a visual idea as to what I do and how these are compiled together. I honestly, the best way to watch my stuff and to watch Theo's stuff is to be in Twitch and be there live and ask questions and join Discords. And if you're really active and interested in this sort of stuff, there is a massive community of people that we've met that really, really enjoy talking about this, preserving it, sharing it. In my Discord, we have screenings every Saturday where we watch movies that I edit from. We call it Context Club, so we can get a better idea of the context of the footage that I'm using. So something that I would encourage is that if there is media that is out there that is public domain or that is maybe just not under any kind of ownership, that you should be encouraged to do something with it in some way, shape, or form. Pastiche is a really fascinating form of art, in my opinion, and referential art and making these sorts of connections back is, I think, something that is in itself kind of its own art form. Do any of you have any questions about analog media, VHS? I can tell you this, never buy a tape with mold on it and put it in your VCR, because the mold will get inside of the VCR and grow on the VCR heads and contaminate the rest of your tapes.
And how can you tell if there's mold on a tape?
Anytime you buy a tape anywhere, you pull it out of the sleeve or you crack open the case and you look for what looks like white powder inside on the tapes. And if you see that, it is mold. I have only cleaned one moldy tape, and that's because I've never been able to find another copy of it. And the way I had to clean it was I had to take the tape apart and individually, with my hand and gloves, slowly rub the mold off of every single piece. The only other way I know how to do it is to sacrifice a VCR and hope that maybe you can put a cleaning tape through it later and it won't be an issue, but I would just recommend staying away from moldy tapes in general. Another way that you can tell if a tape is going to get eaten or if you're going to have difficulty with it, the tape inside, when you look in the little windows on each side, the tape should be flat. If you're seeing these weird little ridges sticking up inside of it, that means it's not tracking along the edge of the tape rollers accurately and it's wobbling around in there. Sometimes if you want to get certain effects, you can do things like that. I kid you not, if you take a brand new VHS tape and slam it on a table, it's going to mess up the rollers within there, and you're going to get all those little pops and wiggles and warbles and things that you're looking for. I actually have a couple VCRs that I've literally dropped on purpose to see what sort of output I would get from them. And sometimes you get some interesting blurring effects, things like that. I really would encourage you all to not use After Effects and to not use filters because they're not accurate. They don't have the same kind of look to them. In a way, it's kind of become its own aesthetic. Like, there's actual VHS and retro, and then there's like Instagram VHS and retro. And really, it's your style and aesthetic, obviously. But that's something I would recommend if you're interested in getting into this. You can find VCRs just about anywhere. I get most of my VCRs and VHS tapes from saying to people, I will take your VHS and VCRs, because they view them as cockroaches and they want them gone. The same thing is true with CRT televisions. You should text all of your family and you should tell them that you are looking for these things, and I guarantee you they all have stuff in a garage somewhere that they don't know what to do with them. There's no need to pay $80 at some like retro game convention for a CRT television, or you should never spend more than $20 on a VCR. If you're getting new old stock, which does exist, right? You can go on Newegg and Amazon, and I just got a new old stock DVD VCR combo from my job, which is really nice. And that's the other thing, is that I think people always want to pick the VCRs that are really cool looking. Ooh, they're like the top loader and these big buttons and it's blue. And the earlier the model of VCR it is, the closer you are to getting your tapes eaten. The newer the VCR is, the far less likely that is to occur. And I know that we want the aesthetic, we want it to look cool and retro, but if you can get a VCR made in 2000, 2001, that's going to be a really beefy machine that you're not going to have to maintain or fix, because at that point in the technology, they had figured things out. I mean, that's kind of always the case with a lot of this retro tech that I think we don't really think about. Does anyone have any questions or anything? Yeah, you want to go over the mic?
Hello. My question's about like unexpected discoveries. A lot of times I hear stories in the Lost Media Wiki about like stuff that's like labeled as gone forever, but only for someone to make a lucky find at a garage sale somewhere.
Sure.
Have you ever had, either one of you, have you ever had like a lucky like kind of discovery like that? And if you've had multiple, what's your favorite one?
Sure. Theo, you want to go first? What's your like favorite discovery?
Well, I don't really have discoveries in the sense that like something that's been thought to be gone forever, but there's one of the things I found for Old Timey Computer Show that I thought was really cool was a pair of tapes for it's called the Complete PC Upgrade and Maintenance Seminar in a Box. And it's a pretty typical thing, like a person at a desk looking at computers and inside them and talking about it for 2 tapes. But the only thing significant about it to me is that it was produced in my hometown of Virginia Beach, Virginia. which this stuff is being made everywhere, even like by people like you and me where you live. And I just think that's neat how this stuff can be found in the places you least expect, the last place you look.
So a question that I get asked a lot is, how often do you find pornography? I get asked that a whole lot because I think there's this whole thought process about that. It has happened once. And it was very obvious when I opened the cassette what was happening, which is that people are hiding their pornography by putting it in, whatever that may be. We do on Tuesday on my stream, we do a thing called Lost and Found, where we watch a lot of instructional tapes. And one of the most interesting discoveries is I put on a tape called Surviving the Big One. And it is created by, and this is the other thing about VHS that's really fascinating. Because of consumer grade video that became so prominent in the 80s, it's kind of like how now anyone can have a YouTube channel, anyone can create video and post it. A video camera and a VHS, and the VHS format allows you to be your own movie maker, so to speak. And it also allows you to kind of scam people because they can't look up what your tape is and they can't vet to see if you know what the hell you're talking about.
They can't check song counts, they can't check reviews, they can't check comments.
They can't check anything. All it's based on is the box art. And it's why some of the worst movies I've ever seen have some of the most amazing box art you have ever seen in your life, because you're walking through a video store. And that's your entire, market in terms of how you're going to make that sort of decision. Surviving the Big One is fascinating because it's a police officer in California, and he's just trying to tell you what to do in the event of an earthquake. And every 15 minutes, he says something that makes it sound like he wants the apocalypse to happen. He just, out of nowhere, he's like, you're going to want to save water because your neighbors are going to want your water too. So you're going to want to protect yourself. And then and so you'll get these boring bits about him, like what to do at work. Always keep an extra pair of shoes in your car. Understand that your neighbor might steal your dog and eat it. Like it just happens in this really bizarre sort of pacing. And so that was something we watched that I was in no way, shape, or form expecting to have something so interesting kind of happen. Anyone else?
Actually, if I can add,
yeah, sure.
The closest thing to that in Old Timey Computer Show, those Y2K survival tapes. Probably the most infamous one of those is the Y2K Survival Guide, hosted by Leonard Nimoy. He talks about why Y2K is happening, what's going to happen, what might happen. He's always sure to say, he's always prepared to say it might happen, it might not actually happen, but also keep financial records, have a lot of cash. Kind of the same thing, like that, just like, if you were earth-shaking events. There was another tape with Robert Stack, and that's not as interesting. And then there's two other tapes about debunking Y2K myths. All of these are produced 1999. And we all know that thanks to the tireless work of people who understand COBOL and the machines that were built in the 60s, that their work resulted in minimal disruption. But that's just a really fascinating time in computer history, 1999.
Some other things, if I can impart wisdom on collecting, okay? Graded VHS tapes are a scam. You should avoid them at all costs, in the same way that it has caused inflation, artificial inflation and scarcity within the video game industry. It's happening in the physical media industry as well. I understand wanting to preserve things and putting them in plastic so that they are in the best possible condition. I think that's wonderful. But the idea of creating commodity out of something that is so mass-produced, I just think is kind of like, no offense, it's kind of like an NFT crypto thing. It's all in the eye of the beholder. The value of these things are really the amount of money you all are willing to fight over to obtain them physically. I'm not somebody who's going to say that you have to own a VCR or have VHS in order to appreciate it even. But there is need. But just like Theo said, you should be watching media that is properly captured, that is at the right frame rate. Have you all seen VHS upscaled to 60 frames per second? It is disgusting. It is an abomination. It makes no sense. You need those blurs. And that's part of the reason why I brought up the CRT thing, is because VCRs are, just like with retro games, there's a knowledge that things are going to be kind of gauzy and kind of blurry. And so it's kind of compensated that way by it.
Yeah, there's been a kind of a movement toward accepting composite video and about how retro game graphics are meant to be viewed by their creators. Like some people will argue you need RGB, you need PVMs, but the reality is that most people played these not just on composite, but on RF in the 80s and into the late 90s. They still had those RF modulators. It wasn't until the 2000s when composite became standard.
Yeah, it's true. I always find that really interesting, and I kind of chased that for a little while. Like I was really trying to get like this amazing kind of array of composite and all that. I do everything with just RCA cables now. Everything, because I think it looks more authentic. It's also a lot easier to deal with. I think we get into these modes. I know you all are like this. I'm like this. We like want stuff on our shelves, and we want things to like look a certain way, and we want it to have this kind of impression because we care about the space we're in. And these objects are a really big part of the space we're in. Like media now is all in our phones. And there's no furniture, so we're disconnected from it in a lot of ways, which is why I think that this kind of collecting is popular, because it's a way of almost setting a scene. It's a way of making, like I said, this horrible digital hellscape a little more survivable, let's say. Does anyone have any questions about how much tapes should cost or where to find them or anything like that? I'm curious, those of you that collect VHS, where do you get them from? What are some of your like techniques, so to speak? Is there anyone here that collects? All right. If you're interested, you need to go to Savers. If you have a Savers near you, Savers is like one of the best. Shop.goodwill.com is a great way to get giant boxes of tapes and then go through them. The other thing that you all need to know, here's a big myth that I want to dispel. There are lots of internet videos and discussions about degrading of tapes. Ooh, if you record over it twice, it's going to look terrible. I did an experiment where for an entire year, in my stream, I have a 15-minute intro of music videos that I've made, and I always shuffle them around. So literally every stream, I have to re-record onto By the way, I stream through a VCR on VHS. So that adds like another 8 hours onto everything that I have to do already for the stream so we can have a more authentic experience.
Talk about dying for your art.
But for an experiment, I decided that for an entire year, every time I had to re-record the intro for Tuesday, I would use the same tape. And if it degraded really bad, cool, that's like a thing I can use. It didn't. Okay? It went through 52 cycles of the same 15 minutes of tape over and over and over again, and it never degraded. Do you know how it degrades? Where my tapes degrade is where I hit eject or when I hit stop. So I have an outro sequence. It's like a bit where Tiger Mask is exercising, Tiger Mask the wrestler, and I have this music that sort of sounds like sitcom music, and it's like the way we leave the stream. That tape, now that I've been using the same tape for 2 years with that outro, as soon as it gets towards the end, right before I hit stop, it starts like crackling and freaking out because I hit stop or eject at the exact same point over and over and over again, and that causes stress to it. So what you're often seeing with the degrading of tapes is the beginning of the recording because you're hitting record and that hit is going on the same portion of tape because tape is physical, it's not digital, and it's physically being hit over and over and over again, causing that to... You can use that to your advantage. I've done things like that before where you can actually kind of bend the tape a little bit and then spool it back in, and you'll get interesting pops and bends and twists and things like that. We only have like a few minutes left, so I just wanted to ask if anyone has any other questions, please feel free. Yeah, come on up. I like your shirt. This is a piece of merchandise from my stream that Theo runs for me.
I'm going to be annoying and ask 2 questions.
Okay.
The first is just like a big picture summary of how you get stuff from hardware, software, tapes, to computer. The second is more of like kind of a copyright thing. If you're trying to like make, for example, like music videos using footage like a lot of paperweight artists do, like how do you know if something's okay to use other than like finding the most obscure thing you can on archive.org?
Okay, so I'll do the second one first, okay? The copyright thing with Twitch is really interesting. My content has a very hard time living anywhere other than Twitch. YouTube takes it down, even Twitter takes things down. Instagram is full of young people and they don't care what I do. So, you know, it's difficult for me. On Twitch, I do not save VODs and I don't allow for clips because then their copyright bots aren't able to grab and see what I'm doing. you know what else that does? Is it creates conditions for appointment viewing, which is not something that we're used to anymore. And if you think about it, that's kind of thematic with what each of us do, right? In the same way that you'd sit down and turn on the TV in the evening because, one show is on at a certain time. I've been banned on Twitch twice for copyright-related reasons, and then I became a partner, and nothing happens anymore, ever. And so I like to think that there's some weirdo at Twitch that, is rooting for me? I don't know how or why this is continuing to happen. I will say with the music videos, I've been doing a lot more of reaching out to actual musicians that currently exist and that I can contact. I really like this musician named Uniwa, and he does this kind of future funk vaporwave sort of thing. I literally just sent him a message on Twitter, and he was all about it. Yes, please, go ahead and use it. So I'm trying to do more of that, so that way I can kind of avoid some of those copyright issues. The digitization stuff is a whole can of worms that I can't really do, but at some point I feel like I'll do a stream or something where I talk about my process with it. I will say my capture card for my stream is often what people ask me, ooh, what are you using? It is called a vidbox. It is from China. It is sold at Walmart. It is for grandmas and boomers to transfer their VHS tapes onto DVD. It works perfectly. There is no need to get some big fancy setup or array in order to stream or capture this stuff.
And the answer for Old Timey Computer Show is pretty much exactly the same, just without any music videos. I have a big spreadsheet of sources where it doubles as if you missed something and you want to watch it later, you can find the link on there. Usually either YouTube or Internet Archive. It also credits the sources, but everything else is exactly the same. As far as copyright goes, there are people on Twitch who have chatted in there with the wrench and everything. I'm pretty sure other people in there are maintaining it. I didn't even get affiliate shit because I don't think it's right to try to monetize any of that stuff. I even have Patreon, but I was resistant to the idea of getting any kind of support for it because I don't believe I should have any ownership to this. I see myself more as a steward of this material than anything else.
I really like that. And I agree. The watermark thing is super annoying.
Because, when you put a watermark on analog video and found media, you're sending the message that that material was created to serve you. You had nothing to do with that thing's creation.
I'll say one positive thing about AI. There's AI that can erase watermarks from still images. I feel like we're not far away from getting to a place where we can use AI to remove watermarks from video as well.
Yeah, I reject watermarked video in most cases for Old Timey Computer Show because I don't think those people deserve to be advertised on something they don't own. There are exceptions to this, but in general, I'll just not miss it and not think about it.
So we are just about out of time. I just wanted to take a minute, and I'm going to let him have a minute to kind of plug what we do. And then up in the film festival room, I brought a bunch of tapes that one of my mods, Ern, who's in the front row, he bought me a bunch of tapes as a gift, and I haven't seen them. There's one in there called, is it Star Hunter or Star? Okay, Star Hunter. The cover of Star Hunter. Have you all seen Masters of the Universe, the live action one? You know the guy that kind of looks like the Predator of the bad guys? He's got a mask. Anyway, I think they're reusing the costume in this movie. I'm absolutely convinced of this. So we're going to watch that movie later and figure out that. And I'm also going to show some of my edits and things like that. Theo has some shorts and documentaries that we're going to show as well. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday at 8:30 Central. If you just look up Forgotten_VCR, I live on Twitch, Twitter, and I have a Patreon. All of my mixtapes are available on my Patreon for you all to watch if you're interested. And then that also gives you access to the Discord and everything like that. But I don't necessarily need you to pay for anything. What I really like is when you come to the stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays, because the more you talk about things and the more you ask questions, the more that motivates me and gives me ideas for edits. People in the stream will say things like, what if this happened? And then I search for footage to make that happen. Because then when I re-deliver that, it makes this idea that you all are joining in and helping with the creation of this media. Thea?
Well, I stream 24/7.
You can go look at it right now.
Yeah, you can go to twitch.tv/Old Timey Computer Show right this second if you want. And I also stream myself at twitch.tv/theopponent, no underscore. I'm a retro variety streamer. I do the occasional speed run, RPG playthroughs, and anything that just fits my fancy, really. I don't really have a theme or even a schedule. I just stream anytime I can, usually after 5 p.m. Eastern time, but occasionally earlier than that, and I don't have enough consistency to plug anything further than that. But this March, I just put together a new schedule for the Old Timey Computer Show. It runs 350 days. And that should be good till 2024, even later, when I find enough material to justify writing that again. Because I do all this by myself. I wrote my own software to manage all that stream automatically. And I want to help other people with their 24/7 channels. If you need consultation or video editing services, here's my card up here. I'd like to connect with you and see if I can expand my own horizons too.
I want to avoid doing commercial editing at all costs, and one of the things that I always say on stream is that the audience that subs to me makes it so that I don't have to do weddings and corporate videos and things like that. So again, he and I have a really big appreciation for this sort of stuff. We love talking about it. I would love it if you guys came up and chatted with us when you see us around, if you have any other questions. And thank you all very much for being here and watching this panel. This is the first panel I've ever been on as Forgotten VCR. This is technically the first time I've ever shown my face as Forgotten VCR ever. So, yeah. So, thank you. I really, really appreciate you all being here.
Thank you all for coming up. And enjoy the rest of your Saturday, everyone.